Have you ever stopped long enough to ask yourself why your life refuses to move in straight lines? Why the people you expected to stay disappeared, while the ones you never planned for arrived at the strangest moments? Why delays followed you like shadows, yet somehow those delays protected you from doors that would have destroyed you, chosen one? What if the confusion you felt was never confusion at all, but preparation? What if the longing in your chest is not loneliness, but recognition? And what if this message is finding you now because heaven has decided you are finally ready to understand what God has been doing behind the scenes? You are not here by accident. You are not listening by coincidence. Pause for a moment and reflect. How many times did you think you missed your chance, only to later realize that what you wanted would have cost you your calling? How many nights did you question God in silence, wondering why your heart stayed guarded, why connections felt incomplete, why something always told you, not yet? That inner restraint was not fear. It was wisdom planted by God. This is not coincidence. This is divine intervention. Beloved chosen one, let me ask you something deeper. Have you noticed that certain people cross your path only when you are becoming stronger, not weaker? Have you realized that the ones meant to walk with you do not arrive when you are desperate, but when you are finally standing upright again? That is not romance. That is alignment. God does not send destiny partners to rescue broken identity. He sends them to walk beside established purpose. From the very beginning, your life has been governed by divine timing, not emotional urgency. You were never late. You were protected. You were never overlooked. You were being positioned. The world rushes connections, forces bonds, clings to familiarity. But you were called out. You were set apart. Heaven slowed your steps so your spirit could mature before your promise arrived. Chosen one, reflect honestly. Doesn't it strike you as strange that when you imagine your future in obedience, peace, and purpose, there is a specific kind of person who fits into that vision? Not a face, not a fantasy, but a presence. Someone whose energy does not disturb your spirit. Someone whose arrival does not bring chaos but clarity. That is not your imagination. That is discernment awakening. God does not operate on haste. He operates on readiness. He prepares people separately before he connects them intentionally. That is why counterfeit connections never lasted. That is why emotional intensity burned out quickly. They were not failures, they were filters. Every ending was removing what could not sustain the weight of your calling. Listen carefully now. If you have ever felt like your life was on hold, it is because heaven was arranging pieces you could not yet see. While you were healing, God was aligning. While you were learning obedience, God was softening another heart. While you were building discernment, God was closing the wrong doors permanently. You were never being punished. You were being preserved. Chosen one, don't do it. No matter the price, do not rush what God is still refining. The enemy's greatest strategy is not to stop destiny, but to introduce it too early. Too early destroys, too early confuses, and too early corrupts. But God is precise. He does not arrive early or late. He arrives on time. There is a reason you could not force certain relationships to work, no matter how much you prayed, tried, or sacrificed. God was shielding you from covenant confusion. What He is preparing for you will not require you to abandon your peace, your boundaries, or your obedience. It will meet you where God has grown you. And now, let your spirit receive this truth. As the prophet spoke to a waiting generation, heaven revealed how God leads His chosen ones step by step. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 29, verse 11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. This is not motivational language. This is divine intention. God does not improvise with destinies, He plans them. You were never meant to chase what God already assigned. What is chosen for you is drawn to obedience, not desperation. That is why peace has become your compass. That is why your discernment is sharper now than it was before. That is why you no longer beg for clarity, you recognize it. Chosen one, this section is your awakening, not to a person but to timing, not to romance but to recognition. The sign is not attraction, the sign is alignment. When God chooses someone for you, He aligns your paths without violating your peace. If this message is stirring something deep within you, don't ignore it. Pause, reflect, acknowledge what God is revealing right now. And if you feel led, support this message by liking it, sharing it with someone who needs clarity, and subscribing to stay connected to what God is unfolding next. At the very end of this moment, as an act of faith, not pressure, comment the number 77 if you receive this word and choose to trust God's timing over your own. You are learning something sacred now, something most people never master because the world trains them to rush. The sign is subtle but unmistakable when everything around you accelerates. You slow down, not because you are unsure, not because you are afraid, but because your spirit has learned how to listen. This is one of the clearest indicators that God is shaping you for discernment, not impulse. In a hurried world, speed is mistaken for confidence. Noise is mistaken for clarity, and pressure is mistaken for direction. But you are being trained differently. You pause before speaking. You wait before deciding. You observe before committing. What once felt like hesitation is now revealed as wisdom. God is teaching you how to move deliberately in an environment addicted to urgency. This is not accidental. God often slows His chosen ones internally while everything externally demands quick reactions. When others rush into relationships, agreements, promises, and emotional bonds, you feel a restraint. You feel a quiet weight rise within you. That restraint is not resistance to love, it is protection for purpose. Here is the practical instruction you are living out. Whether you realized it or not, you no longer respond immediately to emotional stimulation. You let moments breathe. You let words settle. You allow situations to reveal their fruit over time. This is how discernment matures. Truth does not panic when questioned. What is real can withstand waiting. You are practicing something holy in very ordinary ways. You take time before replying to messages that stir your emotions. You step back instead of chasing clarity through confrontation. You choose rest instead of burnout. You listen more than you explain, and these are not personality traits. These are spiritual disciplines forming inside you. Slowness in God's hands is not delay, it is alignment. You are learning that rushed decisions often feel exciting but leave residue: confusion, regret, entanglement. Slow decisions may feel uncomfortable at first, especially when others pressure you, but they leave peace behind. And peace is not passive. Peace is confirmation. This is why God often separates His chosen ones from environments that glorify constant motion, endless notifications, constant conversations, perpetual urgency. These things dull spiritual sensitivity. You are being recalibrated. Your nervous system is learning to rest. Your spirit is learning to speak. Your discernment is sharpening because you are no longer living in reaction mode. Practically, this looks like allowing silence without filling it. It looks like resisting the urge to explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. It looks like choosing to observe patterns instead of reacting to moments. It looks like letting consistency speak louder than intensity. You are also learning to let God defend your timing. You no longer feel the need to prove why you are waiting. You are comfortable saying, "I need more time," without guilt. You understand now that clarity rushed is clarity compromised. God does not shout over chaos, He speaks in stillness. This discipline becomes especially important when it comes to relationships. You notice that when something is truly from God, it does not demand urgency to survive. It does not push you past your boundaries. It does not punish you for pacing yourself. What is chosen can wait. What is counterfeit pressures? So you practice moving slowly even when attraction is strong. You watch how a person handles patience. You observe whether they respect your process or attempt to override it. This is not suspicion. This is stewardship. You are stewarding your heart, your calling, and your future. You are also learning to slow your internal dialogue. Not every thought deserves immediate belief. Not every feeling requires immediate action. You let emotions pass through you without letting them rule you. This is maturity. This is how God trains leaders, not followers. The world equates speed with success. God equates obedience with fruit. The faster path is not always the faithful one. The narrow path often requires slower steps because every step matters. As you practice this, you begin to notice something remarkable. Anxiety decreases and confusion fades. Your decisions become simpler, not because life is easier, but because your discernment is clearer. You stop asking, "What do I want right now?" and start asking, "What aligns with who God is shaping me to be?" This way of living is not flashy. It will not impress impatient people, but it will protect you from years of unnecessary pain. You are learning to let God reveal, not force, what belongs in your life. And this is where Scripture anchors what you are experiencing. The wisdom you are practicing was spoken long ago, not as theory, but as instruction for the discerning heart, according to what is revealed in the book of Proverbs. Chapter 19, verse 2. Desire without knowledge is not good, how much more will hasty feet miss the way? This is not a warning meant to scare you, no, it is a confirmation meant to steady you. Speed without discernment leads off course. Patience keeps you aligned. You are not behind. You are not missing out. You are not too slow. You are moving at the pace of wisdom. God is teaching you to value direction over momentum, depth over excitement, peace over pressure. As this discipline deepens, you will notice that what is meant for you does not slip away while you wait. What is meant for you remains accessible, clear, and undemanding of compromise. Waiting refines your sight. Slowness sharpens your hearing. Stillness strengthens your resolve. You are becoming someone who can be trusted with alignment. Someone who does not need chaos to feel alive. Someone who understands that God often whispers instructions that can only be heard by those willing to move slowly enough to listen. This is not stagnation. This is preparation in motion, quiet, deliberate, and divinely guided. There comes a moment in your journey when God begins to adjust not just what you see, but how you see. This is where you are now. You are no longer reacting to surface behavior. You are reading patterns. You are no longer impressed by words. You are watching consistency. This is a quiet upgrade of perception, and it marks a critical sign that God is preparing you for a connection that requires maturity, not emotion. You have noticed it, even if you could not name it at first. Certain people speak beautifully, promise generously, and move quickly, but something in you stays neutral. Meanwhile, others say very little, move carefully, and respect silence, and your spirit remains calm around them. That calm is not boredom. It is recognition. God is teaching you to identify what is safe, not just what is exciting. Discernment deepens when you stop rushing to define things. You no longer need immediate labels. You are comfortable letting situations unfold. This patience allows truth to surface naturally. What is real will repeat itself. What is false will eventually contradict itself. You are learning to wait long enough to see which one you are dealing with. This section of your growth is about emotional restraint paired with spiritual alertness. You feel things fully, but you no longer let feelings drive the vehicle. You let them sit in the passenger seat while wisdom steers. This balance is rare. Most people either suppress emotions or obey them blindly. You are being taught a third-way awareness without surrender. You are also noticing how God reveals character over time. Someone chosen for you will not be revealed in a single moment of chemistry. They will be revealed through repeated decisions, how they respond to inconvenience, how they handle correction, how they treat people who cannot offer them anything in return. These things cannot be faked for long. That is why waiting is such a powerful filter. This is why God often instructs His chosen ones to watch more than they speak. Silence gives room for observation. Slowness gives room for truth. When you are quiet, others reveal themselves without realizing it. You are not being passive. You are being perceptive. You may have noticed that as your discernment sharpens, your tolerance lowers. You are less willing to entertain confusion. You disengage faster from mixed signals. You stop negotiating your boundaries for potential. This is not hardness of heart. This is clarity of standards. And here is an important truth when God chooses someone for you. Discernment does not disappear, it increases. Peace does not blind you, it grounds you. Love does not remove wisdom, it requires it. That is why God matures your sight before He aligns your path. You are also learning to test fruit, not intentions. Many people have good intentions. Few have disciplined character. You are no longer moved by apology alone. You look for change. You are no longer persuaded by charm. You look for consistency. This is the discernment of someone who has been trained through experience and guided by God. This level of awareness can feel lonely at times. Fewer people meet you here. Fewer connections survive this clarity. But what remains is real. God is not interested in filling your life with noise. He is preparing space for what aligns. You are not suspicious, you are selective. You are not closed, you are careful. You are not fearful, you are wise. And Scripture confirms that this way of seeing is not human instinct. It is divine instruction. The ancient words recorded in Romans still echo today. The ancient words recorded in Romans chapter 12, verse 2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will. This is not about isolation from the world. It is about clarity within it. Renewed minds discern alignment. This renewal is what allows you to sense when someone belongs in your future rather than just your present. You can feel when a connection supports obedience instead of distracting from it. You can sense when peace is mutual, not one-sided. This is not mystical, it is practiced discernment guided by God. Now, at this point in the message, there is a quiet but important action, not for performance, not for validation, but for alignment. If this section resonates with you, comment the phrase, "I choose clarity." This phrase is short because clarity itself is simple. It is not complicated. It cuts through noise. By writing it, you are not signaling perfection, you are affirming intention. You are choosing discernment over impulse, wisdom over urgency, alignment over assumption. This comment is not for others, Maun. It is a marker for you, a reminder that you are no longer moving blindly. You are seeing with intention. You are walking with awareness. As you continue forward, understand this discernment is not something you arrive at once. It is something you practice daily. And you are practicing well. God trusts you with sight because you have learned not to misuse it. You are not here to rush into what looks good. You are here to walk steadily into what is God-ordained. And that requires exactly what you are developing now: clear eyes, a steady heart, and the courage to wait until truth fully reveals itself. There is a reason God keeps drawing your attention back to holiness, even when the world calls it unnecessary. There is a reason conviction rises in you when compromise looks convenient. This sign is not random. It mirrors a pattern God has always used with those He chooses for greater purpose. To understand what is happening in you now, you must look back to a young man standing in a foreign land, surrounded by pressure, temptation, and expectation. Daniel was taken into Babylon, a system designed to reshape identity. New language, new education, new standards, new rewards. Everything around him whispered the same message: adapt, blend in, survive. Babylon did not threaten Daniel with violence at first. It offered him comfort, privilege, advancement. The temptation was subtle: just eat what everyone else eats. Just live how everyone else lives. No one would notice. No one would blame him. After all, wasn't he already far from home? But Daniel understood something many people miss. Compromise does not begin with rebellion. It begins with small permissions. And Daniel made a decision early, before the pressure peaked, before emotions blurred judgment. He decided in his heart not to defile himself. This is where your story intersects with his. You are not always facing obvious evil. Most of the tests in your life come disguised as normal, acceptable, even beneficial. Opportunities that look harmless, relationships that feel almost right, environments that reward silence over integrity. Babylon rarely asks you to deny God outright. It simply asks you to lower your standards quietly. Daniel refused. He did not stage a protest. He did not condemn others. He did not draw attention to himself. He simply chose obedience in private before it was ever rewarded in public. That choice looked small: a meal, a diet, a daily discipline. But heaven was watching. Daniel understood that what you consume shapes what you become. Food was not the real issue. Influence was. Identity was. Alignment was. He knew that to stay sensitive to God, he had to guard what entered his body, his mind, and his spirit. Chosen one, this is exactly what God has been training you to do. You have been saying no to things others say yes to. You have been stepping back when others rush forward. You have been declining invitations that would cost you your peace. Not because you are weak, but because you are consecrated. Like Daniel, you are learning that favor follows obedience, not popularity. What makes Daniel's story powerful is not just that he refused to defile himself. It is that God honored his restraint. Daniel did not lose influence by obeying God. He gained it. He did not fall behind. He stood out. His obedience activated divine favor that no system could manufacture. And Scripture records this moment not as moral advice, but as divine principle. As was written in the sacred account of his life, It is written in the book of Daniel, chapter 1, verse 8. But Daniel resolved not to defile himself with the royal food and wine, and he asked the chief official for permission not to defile himself this way. That word resolved matters. It means the decision was settled before the test intensified. This is what God is calling you into now, a settled heart. You are not meant to decide your boundaries in the moment of temptation. You decide them beforehand, in prayer, in stillness, in conviction. That is why you feel firm now. That is why certain options no longer feel negotiable. Your spirit has resolved. And notice this: Daniel's obedience did not isolate him from people. It distinguished him among them. God gave him favor in the eyes of those in authority. When you choose holiness, God does not remove you from influence, He repositions you within it. This applies directly to the relationships God is preparing for you. When God chooses someone for you, that connection will respect your consecration, not test it. It will protect your convictions, not pressure them. If someone requires you to defile yourself emotionally, spiritually, morally to stay connected, they are not aligned with your calling. Daniel's story teaches you that obedience may look costly at first, but compromise is always more expensive in the end. What you refuse today protects what God entrusts to you tomorrow. You are not missing out by choosing purity. You are being preserved for clarity. You are being prepared for favor that does not fade when circumstances change. And as you listen to this, if you feel a quiet confirmation rising, if this message strengthens your resolve rather than condemns you, I gently invite you to support this channel by liking and sharing this message with someone who may be standing at the same crossroads. And if you haven't yet, subscribing simply helps you stay connected to teachings that aim to build discernment, not pressure. There is no obligation, only alignment. Chosen one. Remember this: Babylon rewards compromise quickly. God rewards obedience permanently. Daniel's restraint positioned him for revelation, promotion, and influence far beyond that single decision. And your obedience now, especially when no one is applauding, carries the same spiritual weight. You are not called to blend in. You are called to stand clean. And God Himself watches over those who resolve in their hearts to honor Him. There is a phase God brings His chosen ones into that feels confusing if you do not understand the pattern. It is the phase where confirmation no longer comes once, it comes repeatedly. Not loudly, not dramatically, but consistently. The same truth shows up in different forms, from different directions, until your doubt has nowhere left to stand. This is one of the strongest signs that God is involved, especially when it concerns a person He has chosen for your life. You begin to notice it subtly. A verse you have never paid attention to suddenly follows you. A message you were not looking for speaks directly to a private prayer. A conversation overheard answers a question you asked God in secret. None of these moments scream for attention. Yet together they form a pattern that is too precise to dismiss. This is how God confirms, not through chaos, but through repetition. Chosen one. Understand this clearly: God does not confuse His children. If confusion increases, it is not because God is unclear, it is because you are being trained to slow down and notice what He is already saying. Confirmation requires attentiveness. That is why this sign appears later in your journey, after discernment has matured. You are no longer chasing signs impulsively. You are recognizing them calmly. You are not desperate for reassurance. You are attentive to alignment. That shift alone reveals growth. God knows the weight of what He is preparing to entrust to you. When it involves covenant, destiny, or long-term assignment, He does not whisper once and walk away. He confirms patiently, lovingly, repeatedly until your spirit settles into peace rather than anxiety. This repetition does not come from obsession. It comes from consistency. You are not forcing meaning onto random events. You are noticing how the same message arrives without your effort. That is a key distinction. When God confirms, you do not have to hunt, it finds you. You may have noticed that these confirmations often come when you are not actively thinking about the person or situation. They arrive in moments of surrender, not fixation. This is intentional. God confirms when your grip loosens. So you know the message is not fueled by desire but guided by truth. Another detail matters here. True confirmation does not inflate ego or stir impatience. It grounds you, it steadies you, it invites trust rather than urgency. If something pushes you to rush, to bypass wisdom, or to override peace, it is not divine confirmation, it is emotional pressure. God's confirmations are layered. Scripture aligns with character. Peace aligns with timing. Counsel aligns with conviction. When these layers agree, clarity emerges without force. This is also why God allows time between confirmations. Space reveals sincerity. Time tests motives. What is truly from God remains coherent across seasons. What is imagined eventually collapses under waiting. You are being taught to trust what endures. Chosen one. This sign is especially important when it comes to relationships. God knows how easily emotions can distort perception. That is why He confirms relational alignment through multiple witnesses: internal peace, external counsel, scriptural harmony, and consistent fruit. Not one sign, but many. You are learning to respect this process rather than rush past it. You are allowing God to build assurance instead of borrowing certainty from feelings. This is maturity, and Scripture affirms this pattern clearly. Heaven has always established truth through more than one voice, more than one moment, as the Apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians. The Apostle reminds us in his second letter to the Corinthians, chapter 13, verse 1. Every matter must be established by the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses. This is not just a legal principle, it is a spiritual safeguard. God confirms to protect you. If God has been repeating Himself to you lately through Scripture, through quiet conviction, through unexpected reminders, do not dismiss it. Do not rush to conclude it either. Let it complete its work. Repetition is not pressure, it is patience. You are not meant to act on the first sign alone. You are meant to recognize the pattern. Patterns reveal intention. Single moments can mislead. God builds patterns because they withstand scrutiny. This is also where trust deepens. You stop asking God to prove Himself and start allowing Him to lead you. You no longer demand immediate answers. You allow clarity to arrive fully formed. Chosen one. This section is not about excitement. It is about assurance. The kind that anchors you when emotions fluctuate. The kind that remains steady when circumstances shift. The kind that does not require constant reassurance because it is rooted in consistency. Now, at this moment in the message, there is a simple act not to persuade God, not to impress anyone, but to mark alignment. If you recognize this sign operating in your life, if you have seen God confirm the same truth more than once, comment the number 999. This number represents completion, God finishing what He has been patiently revealing. And you choosing to trust the process rather than rush the outcome. This is not about declaring certainty before it's time. It is about honoring what God has already shown you. Quietly, repeatedly, faithfully. You are not confused. You are being confirmed. There is a sign that often unsettles people when it appears. Yet it is one of the most revealing indicators that God is involved. Resistance increases as alignment becomes clearer. Just when things begin to make sense internally, external pressure rises, delays multiply, misunderstandings surface, opposition appears from unexpected directions. This is not regression. This is exposure. You are not imagining it. When God moves something into position, friction often follows. Light disturbs what has grown comfortable in shadow. Order disrupts chaos that benefited from confusion. And when your life begins to align with God's intent, especially in matters of calling and covenant, anything misaligned will react. This resistance does not always look dramatic. Sometimes it shows up as sudden fatigue, sometimes as distractions that pull your focus, sometimes as voices that question what you were once confident about. Other times it appears through people's misinterpretation, unnecessary conflict, or subtle discouragement. These are not random. They are indicators that something is being contested. Chosen one, understand this clearly: opposition is not proof that you are wrong. Often, it is evidence that you are close. God allows resistance not to stop you, but to reveal what cannot follow you forward. Pressure exposes motives. Tension reveals foundations. When something collapses under resistance, it was not built to last. What remains steady under pressure is what God fortifies. This is why the season feels heavier even though your clarity is stronger. Your discernment has sharpened, but the environment feels less cooperative. That contrast is intentional. God is teaching you not to measure truth by ease. Ease is not confirmation. Peace is. You are learning that alignment does not eliminate warfare, it defines it. When you were unsure, resistance was vague. Now that you are clearer, resistance becomes targeted. It aims at your focus, your patience, your confidence in what God has shown you. This is not accidental. What matters is how you respond. You are not being asked to fight harder, you are being asked to stand steadier. Not every battle requires movement. Some require immovability. You are learning when to advance and when to remain planted. This season teaches you discernment in conflict. You are no longer reacting emotionally to every challenge. You are discerning which resistance requires response and which requires restraint. Silence becomes strategy. Patience becomes power. Stability becomes testimony. You may notice that some people become uncomfortable with your clarity, not because you changed toward them, but because you changed within yourself. When you stop seeking approval, those who benefited from your uncertainty feel threatened. This is not your responsibility to fix. God is also showing you that not every closed door is the enemy. Some resistance is redirection. Some delays are divine insulation. Some obstacles are preventing premature exposure. You are learning to ask not just why is this happening, but what is this protecting? This is especially important as it relates to relationships. When God chooses someone for you, opposition will attempt to distort timing, perception, or trust. Miscommunication may arise, distance may appear, external pressures may test patience. These are not signs to panic. They are invitations to observe how alignment holds under strain. What is from God does not dissolve under resistance, it clarifies. What is fragile fractures. What is forced fails. What is ordained endures. And here is where Scripture grounds this experience in truth. The resistance you are encountering is not new, and it is not personal. It is spiritual. As was spoken plainly in the sacred writings, the ancient words recorded in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. This verse does not call you to fear. It calls you to perspective. The battle is not about people, it is about alignment. When you understand this, you stop internalizing opposition. You stop turning resistance into self-doubt. You stop questioning what God already confirmed. Instead, you strengthen your posture. You guard your peace. You remain anchored. This season also reveals your growth. In the past, resistance may have made you retreat or over-explain. Now you stay steady. You do not feel the need to convince everyone. You let time and fruit speak. That is maturity. You are learning that some resistance fades once it realizes you are not backing down. Other resistance intensifies briefly before collapsing. Neither outcome is your concern. Your role is obedience, not outcome management. God does not remove opposition immediately because opposition develops endurance. Endurance develops authority. Authority is required for what He is preparing to entrust to you. You are not being delayed, you are being strengthened. And notice this even in resistance. Provision remains, and even in tension. Peace is accessible, even in uncertainty. Guidance continues. God is not absent in opposition, He is present within it. You are not walking through this season alone. You are being trained to carry clarity without collapsing under pressure. This is preparation for greater responsibility, deeper connection, and more visible alignment. What you are facing now is not meant to break you. It is meant to reveal what in you cannot be broken. You are standing at the edge of integration now, the place where everything God has been teaching you begins to lock together. Timing, discernment, holiness, confirmation, resistance, all of it converges here. This final sign is quieter than the others, yet it is the most decisive. Your vision of the future no longer feels fragmented. It aligns. When you look ahead in obedience, purpose, and calling, there is room for another person without distortion, not intrusion, not compromise. Alignment, this is not fantasy, this is coherence. Earlier in your journey, imagining the future may have felt stressful. You saw success but not peace, purpose but not companionship, or companionship that required shrinking your calling. Those visions were incomplete because you were still becoming. Now something has changed. When you imagine obedience, your spirit remains calm. When you imagine legacy, your heart does not tighten. When you imagine walking forward with God, there is space beside you, not emptiness, not crowding, but alignment. This is one of the clearest signs that God has been preparing you for a chosen connection. Notice the difference. You are no longer trying to fit someone into your future by force. You are recognizing whether they naturally belong there. You are not negotiating values to make the picture work. The picture works because values already agree. This is not emotional attachment, it is spiritual architecture. You can tell because your calling no longer feels threatened by connection. It feels supported by it. God never sends someone into your life who competes with your obedience. What He chooses aligns with it. That alignment shows up first in vision, before conversations, before commitments, before clarity is spoken out loud. It is sensed within. You may have noticed that your prayers have shifted. You no longer ask God to give you what you want. You ask Him to preserve what aligns. You pray less for excitement and more for endurance, less for speed and more for faithfulness. That shift reveals maturity and readiness. This sign also carries peace about the long view. You are not fixated on the next step alone. You think in seasons. You consider consequences. You weigh fruit over time. Someone chosen for you fits not only into your present preferences, but into your future responsibilities. That awareness is new and it is God-formed. You are beginning to understand that destiny is shared, not dragged. God does not ask one person to pull another toward purpose. He aligns people who are already walking in the same direction. When He chooses someone for you, their trajectory harmonizes with yours without coercion. That does not mean perfection. It means agreement in direction. This is why you can sense misalignment earlier now. You feel it when conversations drift away from obedience. You notice when values subtly diverge, and instead of forcing harmony, you respect the signal. This is wisdom protecting vision. The future God shows you is not glamorous, it is grounded. It involves service, growth, sacrifice, and joy woven together. And the person God chooses for you does not distract from that vision. They reinforce it. They do not replace God's voice. They recognize it. They do not demand center stage. They walk alongside. Scripture speaks directly to this principle of aligned vision. It is not a modern concept, it is ancient wisdom, as was spoken plainly through the prophet, as the prophet wrote in the book of Amos, chapter 3, verse 3. Do two walk together unless they have agreed to do so? This is not about similarity of personality. It is about agreement of direction, agreement of values, agreement of obedience. God does not unite people who are walking toward different futures. This sign is also marked by restraint. You are not rushing to announce what God has shown you. You protect it. You ponder it. You allow it to mature in prayer rather than expose it prematurely. Vision is fragile in its early stages. God teaches His chosen ones to guard it until it is strong enough to stand. You are also comfortable with the unknown now. You do not need every detail resolved to move forward in faith. You trust the alignment more than the timeline. That trust is evidence of growth. This section is not about arrival, it is about readiness. And as you listen, if this message resonates, if you sense clarity rather than pressure, peace rather than urgency, I want to gently invite you into something simple. Supporting this message by liking or sharing it helps others who are quietly searching for the same confirmation you once needed. And subscribing is not about numbers. It is about staying connected to teachings meant to strengthen discernment and alignment over time. There is no demand here, only an open invitation. Chosen one, remember this: God's choices are coherent. They make sense in the light of obedience. They hold under scrutiny. They endure across seasons. If someone truly is chosen for you, your future with God remains intact, stronger, clearer, and more focused than before. You are not guessing anymore. You are recognizing. You don't need to rush away from this moment. Let what you've heard settle gently, like something placed in your hands rather than pressed onto your shoulders. Nothing here demands an answer right now. Nothing needs to be proven. What is meant for you has a way of continuing to speak long after the words end. If this message stays with you, that's enough. If it causes you to reflect differently, to move more carefully, to listen more deeply, that is already fruit. Some will feel clarity immediately. Others will recognize the meaning later, in a quiet decision or in a moment of restraint that protects something precious. Both are valid. You are not behind. You are not late. You are not missing what God has prepared. Alignment is not always loud. Often it arrives as calm understanding, as permission to trust the pace you are walking. And if you choose to like or share this message, let it be because it resonated, not because you were asked. Let it travel only where it is meant to land. Stay open, stay discerning, stay grounded. What God is unfolding does not require pressure to continue. It will meet you again. exactly when it needs to.